Amen. Good morning, everybody. Can we still say Happy New Year? Happy New Year. We can still say that. Marvellous. If you have the slides up, please, that'd be fantastic. Because with the person next to you, can you finish this sentence? I want 2026 to be the year of... Off you go. Go. I hope many of us are excited about the year ahead. Some of us stepping into the new year, some of us dancing into the new year, some of us crawling into the new year. Now, I don't know what you want for this year. I don't know what aims you've got. Sure, many of us have got things we'd like to achieve, things that we'd like to happen. And the truth is, we don't know what's going to happen this year. We don't know what's going to happen. But we do know, and I can guarantee you will be a different person by the end of this year than you are right now. That's true. That's true. I don't know what kind of different person you're going to be. You're going to be a different person because you are going to be, whichever direction you are on, you are going to be further along in that direction, aren't you? That's just physics. If you're traveling this way, give it a year, you're going to be that way, but further. I'd say it's not rocket science, but it basically is. Whichever way you're pointing, give it enough time, you're going to go further. And I think one of the things that, as Ian mentioned last year when we did Practicing the Way, the thing that really stuck with me, got under my skin, was less about the question of what do I want to do and more the question, who do I want to be? Not so much what do I want to accomplish, but what kind of personality traits, what kind of character traits, what kind of habits am I going to adopt in order to change me as a person? That's what we're going to think about. And as Ian mentioned, he said, let's do a course, let's do 4 weeks on generosity. And I must admit, I was a bit cynical. I thought, Ian, December's expensive. It's a bit dark out. Is this really the best? Couldn't we do something maybe on, I don't know, reading the Bible, like something a bit cheaper? But no, he said, and actually, the more I've looked at it, the more I've been inspired, and I think it's going to be really exciting. I'm really looking forward to these 4 weeks as we look at generosity based on some of the work from John Mark Comer or the wonderfully named Randy Alcorn, who wrote a book about this. And so we've got this kind of rhythm that I hope you're going to join us in, which is the kind of idea that we're going to study it together. So we'll come back to that. We're going to study it together on Sundays. There's going to be sermons. You can catch up on the podcast, or you can engage with some of the written material. And then we're going to practice it. We're going to give it a go as a church and as individuals. We're going to see what happens as we try and be more generous. And then having done that, we're going to reflect on it. And we're going to ask ourselves the question, am I happier? Is this working? As we try and change our practices, am I more blessed? Am I more whole? Am I more full of light? Am I more full of love? We're going to ask ourselves the question. I'd encourage you to do that in a group. We learn best in circles. So join a small group. Start a small group. Start a WhatsApp group. Get some people to be accountable to each other. So you can ask yourself the question, right, we've tried this. Is it working for you? And then next week, we'll just do it again. We'll do it again because, like I shared in my Christmas message, I'm a big fan of this long obedience in the same direction. Yeah? We keep on moving. We keep on moving and become more and more like Jesus. I'm aware, though, that I've said we're going to do 4 weeks on generosity. And some of you have immediately looked in your calendar and been like, right, I'll see you at the end of Feb then. This isn't for me. You shared my cynicism, perhaps. Maybe it's more than cynicism. I'm very aware, and I want to be very honest at the start of this 4-week course. Like, I know that people have used stages even on church, to preach on generosity out of selfish ambition, okay? I'm aware that that happens. I'm also aware in a group this size, there will be a number of you who have been hurt by said messages, okay? That you thought you were hearing something that was for your benefit and it turned out it was for the benefit of the person on the stage, okay? I know that happens, and I am sorry if that has happened to you in a church. So I want to be very clear. I'm not paid to be here. I don't want your money. So everything I share today is from that place, okay? I just want to make sure we're all on there. That's from that place. And I want to be, so I'm sharing this because I believe Jesus talks a lot about our habits and our practices, and I believe they're good for us. I've come to believe that how Jesus says to live is a beautiful way to live. And so that's what we're doing. We're sharing it. Ian said last week, the verse of the year, I want to know the truth, and the truth will set us free. This is what it's about. Engaging with the truth that Jesus speaks in order that can change us and set us free and lead us to a more blessed life. And one of the things that Jesus says about money, because he talks quite a lot about it, one of the things he says is, there is more joy in giving than in receiving. There is more joy in giving than in receiving. In other translations, it is more blessed to give than to receive. Or you are far happier giving than you are getting. Do we believe that? Think about Christmas or a time where you exchange gifts. It's better when you give, isn't it? Isn't it better when you know you've given a really good gift and it's landed well and you're like, that brings you a lot of joy. I was looking at some research on this because some of you won't believe Jesus, so I'm telling you all believe the science. I did some research on this and they came up with these amazing facts after all this research, all these interviews, all these scientific experiments, and they said, giving is good for you. They said the joy of giving lasts longer than the joy of getting. If you don't believe Jesus, believe the science. I mean, I was reading something. The thing that's funny about this, so I was reading some of these stuff, and some of it was quite like highbrow science literature or whatever. Some of it was just newspaper articles. Some of it was quite highbrow. And you know where someone's telling you something as though it's like the most amazing new truth in the world. They're like, guys, we've discovered this incredible truth. It's better to give than to receive. And I'm like, yeah, I have read that before, actually. This isn't new. It's true. And I'd encourage you, do you believe that? Do you believe it's better to give than it is to get? Do you live like you believe it? Well, that's some of the question we're going to think about. Let's test it out. Think about the most generous person you know. Picture them. Are they smiling? Are they happy? Apparently, according to this research, if you are more generous, you live longer. You laugh more. You are healthier and you are happier. Jesus is right. So maybe we can try and discover the joy of giving this week. Buy someone a coffee. Start small. It's countercultural, isn't it? Because we have got thousands of advertisements hitting us every day telling us the stuff we should get. And Jesus is like, think about the stuff you can give. Who in your life can you be generous? Buy someone a book. Send someone a voucher. Get the coffee in for the person behind you. Start small, but start enough to make it a little bit uncomfortable just to test it out. See if you are more blessed as you give than you are when you receive. I want to focus today on Matthew 6, starting on verse 19. So if you've got a Bible and want to join me looking at Matthew 6, verse 19, Jesus says this, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy, where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. My friends, it's not a question of whether you're hoarding treasure or gathering treasure. The question is, where is it? Because we're all investing in something. We're all investing in someone. We're all investing in relationships. We are all gathering. The question is where? And how vulnerable is it in the place that you are? John Mark Comer tells this story about how he used to collect all these, he was a big collector. And then he left it in the garage one winter and then the rats just ate it all. And he was like, that's such a visceral, it's a powerful image about what so many of us do in our lives, don't we? We just try and gather and hoard. Think how much energy you spend trying to buy stuff you don't need. How much effort you go to trying to, does your house look like that? My mum's house looks a bit like that. It's not a photo of my mum's house. Her house is way worse. Yeah. This temptation. Where's your treasure? Where are you putting your treasure? Where are you gathering stuff? And then there's this fascinating verse that I've thought a lot about this week. Jesus says this. He says, read it carefully, verse 21. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. Now, I know that the stuff I'm passionate about, I spend money on. Okay? But that's not what Jesus is saying here. We know that's true. If you're passionate about something, you spend money on it. We know that's true. It's not what Jesus is saying, though. He says, where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. What I'm saying is, sometimes our money follows our heart. You're passionate about someone or something, and you spend money on that thing or that someone, yeah? But Jesus is saying, as well as that, also, where you spend your money, your heart will also go there. Let me put that in very practical terms. You do not care about losing a pen, do you? Until you bought an expensive pen, and then you care. I've been put on a lot of courses at work. I hope that's not a reflection of my competency, actually. Anyway, so I've been on these courses, right? And I must admit, I'm a bit slack with the whole note-taking and deadlines and the video's playing and you're doing some emails, you know what I mean? I don't fully engage in those courses. Tell you what, when I had to pay for my own masters, you bet I met those deadlines. I met those deadlines far in advance because that was not a cheap course. And I was paying. What Jesus is saying, and it's so true. We know it's true, isn't it? It's not just that our money follows our heart. Also, where we invest our money, we start to care about those things. There's an element of, if you want to start prioritizing something, then spend some money on it. And see your heart follows your wallet. Both are true. Both are true. Our heart follows our money, but also we start to fret and care and focus on the things that we have spent our money on. Then Jesus says this in verse 22. It says, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great that darkness. And it feels a bit out of place. Jesus is doing this whole teaching on money and generosity, and then he's talking about cataracts. And I'm like, Jesus, we're talking about healthy eyes here. This feels a bit of a deviation from the sermon. And it didn't really make sense. So I did and Shane Willard, a teacher I really love and respect, he does some great teaching on this. And he says, it's not a deviation. This is all one bit of teaching from Jesus. In first century Hebrew culture, apparently, and I'll pronounce this wrong, so I apologize. If you said someone had an eye full of light, that meant yetzer tov, and it meant they were generous. That's what it means to have an eye full of light, is to be a generous person. Apparently, if you said someone had an eye full of evil, it was yetzer hara, which means selfish or greedy. Don't give me the evil eye has its roots in don't be greedy with me, don't be stingy with me. And as I've been looking at the scripture on this and doing some research on this and reading some of John Mark Comer's stuff on it, I've realized that there does seem to be a habit of things that Jesus said 2,000 years ago reappearing in psychology today. People pretending it's their idea. One such example is this. You might not have heard yetzer hara or evil eye or good eye, but many of us who have looked at some psychology or sociology, you will have heard abundance mindset and scarcity mindset. It's the same, isn't it? It's the same. The idea being that when you present two people with exactly the same situation, if you have got an abundance mindset, you view it as though there is enough. If you've got a scarcity mindset, the way you act and behave is bound up in that idea that there just isn't enough to go round. There was a story to illustrate this. A shoe sales company, big shoe company, wanted to diversify and expand into new territories and to new markets. So the sales director, she pulls in her two best people and she sends them out. She sends them out to rural India in order to scope out what kind of market they might be able to expand into. And the first one comes back, head down, being like, cancel it, don't bother. None of them wear shoes. There's no point. Second one comes in bounding. Ramp up production. None of them wear shoes. Look at the market. They all need to buy them. There's an abundance mindset and there's a scarcity mindset. And how we view it determines how we act, determines our habit, determines our posture. Jesus says, you be careful. Before you start looking at how you spend your money, look at how you view the world. Because how you see it will determine on how you act. Have you got a clean eye? Have you got an eye of light? Or have you got an eye of darkness? Have you got an abundance mindset? Or have you got a scarcity mindset? If we've got a scarcity mindset, we kind of hoard, we grab, we're mean. You know you've got a scarcity. You know when you're acting out of a scarcity mindset, don't you? Like someone sends you an email, they're like, there's pizza in the office. People have never seen you move that fast. You're sprinting there. Before anyone's got out of their seats, you've got 4 pieces. You've already highlighted the high-value items. You're there for the meat feast. Forget the pineapple. You're a vegetarian. Doesn't matter. You know they're the most valuable ones. You're stacking it high. Your brain has told you you're never going to eat again. You're scoffing it down, looking at other people eating. Every piece they eat is one they've stolen from you. Because you've got a scarcity mindset and a zero-sum game. It's the scarcity mindset. Scarcity mindset, you've just found a fantastic value swimming club for your child, and you tell nobody. Because you've got this view that if I give someone else an advantage, that is an advantage I have left. Yeah? You've got a view that it's a zero-sum game. You're the kind of person who believes the last item left in stock lie on every website. You're like, guys, it's the last one. They're not going to make any more handbags ever. I have to buy this one. It's a scarcity mindset where your brain is tricking you into thinking that there's not enough to go around, so you must grab as much as you can as quickly. Scarcity. You're the person who bought all the toilet roll in the pandemic. That's the scarcity mindset. The thing is, the scarcity mindset, it so often comes from our view of God. Comes from our view of God. So we thought a lot about the names we were going to give our kids, and the third and final edition of our family. We decided we were going to call her a name which is very similar to this guy. Who knows who this is? Yes, Ebenezer Scrooge. Very good. I still remember studying it at school. The first line of the intro to Scrooge has always stuck with me. Here's a little bit of it. Oh, a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. I still remember studying that all these years later. Such wonderful writing, such a horrible character. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Someone who clings, someone who is cold, someone who is distant, someone who is mean. And if we have a view of God who's like that, we will have a scarcity mindset. We will believe that there isn't enough to go round. We will believe that any help we offer others is an advantage that we lose. We believe that it will be a zero-sum game, that the winner takes all, that the only way to get to the top is to push everyone else down on your way up. If that is our view of God, we will always have a scarcity mindset, and everything Jesus says about money will make no sense to you. You can't be generous with that kind of view of God. You can't be generous with a scarcity mindset that tells you there won't be enough. I mean, that's not why we called it that, by the way. That's not why we called it that. Because although at the start of the story it's a Scrooge, his character changes. Many of us have got a view of God who looks like this at the beginning of the story. Someone who is cold and distant and mean. But it's January, so I'm reading Genesis. Feels appropriate. Start of the year, I'll read some Genesis. Let me tell you, my friends, as I've been reading Genesis, this is not the God we worship. This is not the God of Scripture. This is not what God is like. I've been reading Genesis, and it says, God created mankind in his own image. The image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them, and he blessed them. And he said, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth, subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living thing. I give you, read Genesis, and the number of times it says God gives and God gives and God gives. And the first person who takes is when Eve takes the apple. God gives. We have a giving God. We have an abundant God. It says they will be yours for food, and all the beasts of the earth and all the birds in the sky and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has breath of life in it. I give every green plant for food. God saw what he had made, and it was good. This is a God who overflows with creativity. This is a God who gives and gives and gives again. This is a God who does not lack. but he loves you with an everlasting love. This is a God who lavishes upon you mercy and hope and goodness and righteousness. This is a generous God who leads you, who calls you to live an abundant life. Because when we have a generous God, when we have an abundant God, we can have an abundance mindset. We can have confidence that there is enough. And when we believe that, our hands and our wallets can follow suit. So we called our daughter this. I mean, it's Ezer. If she was a boy, she would have been Ebenezer. She's the one on the right, by the way. Just to be clear. When we called her that, that's the name we chose. As I say, we would have called her Ebenezer because a lot of you said, oh, that character's Scrooge. And he is. And that name has come to mean tight-fisted and mean. But the full name is Ebenezer Scrooge. At the start of the story, he's a Scrooge. By the end, it's far more Ebenezer. So we read in the Old Testament, there's this wonderful story where we got the name from. It's in 1 Samuel. And it comes after God has saved his people. And there's this wonderful story in Old Samuel. The prophet Samuel lifts up a massive rock and he calls it Ebenezer. This far, the Lord has helped us. That's what it means. This far, the Lord has helped us. We called our daughter that because I wanted to remind myself, this far God has helped us, so now my soul can find rest, which is what the rest of her name means. I need to remind myself that last year God came through. And as I do that, I will believe he will come through again. I need to remind myself that my God's arm is not too short, so that next time I can believe he will come through again. I can remind myself that yes, there were giants, but my God was bigger. I can remind myself that there were times of depression, but my God carried me through. There were times of anxiety, but my God comforted me. That is why every single Sunday we come together and we sing and remind ourselves of the faithfulness of God, who has not let you down, who has carried you this far. And we raise up this rock and we say, this far God has helped me. This far God has carried me. And because of that, I will have faith stepping into the next year. I do not need to grab and hoard and be stingy because I worship a God who is a generous God, an abundant God who has got more than enough. This far God has helped us. And that will give me the confidence to live out of a place of blessing. Jesus finishes after his talk on the abundance mindset and the scarcity mindset with a bit of a warning. Verse 24 says, no one can serve two masters. You either hate one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Or you cannot serve God and mammon. New Testament was all written in Greek, apart from the odd word, which is Aramaic. This is one of those words. Because it doesn't translate well. They reckon that it was maybe the name of an ancient god of wealth. And I think it's interesting. Jesus says he doesn't say you shouldn't serve God and money. He just says you can't. He says it's impossible. You can't be devoted to one and devoted to the other. The more you're devoted to one, the more you'll despise the other. You can't serve both God and money. It's a challenge to finish on. And it really cuts to us because maybe you're like me. I like to think that money is just like a neutral thing, that I control when I use it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I like to think it's just neutral. It's not really, I control when I use it. And Jesus warns us. He's like, no. This thing has got power. And if you're not careful, it will control you and it will use you. You can't serve God and mammon. It's a warning to us that there's a spiritual element to money. Like we talked about at the start, where you put your money, there's something about your heart and your attitude that follows it. And Jesus is warning. He's like, you've got to hold this thing carefully because this is a power that will seek to own you. Think about all the evil that is done in the world because people are behest to mammon. Think about all the terrible things that are done because people are so locked up by that power that money can hold over them. Money can control us in debt, can control us in decisions where we can't make a decision without thinking about how much it costs. It can control us in desire where we always want more and more. Jesus says you cannot serve both God and money. Some of you have asked about an update for my Christmas lights. So I'll share it with you because you've got a few minutes and I'll finish with this. Those of you who weren't here for my Christmas talk, I'm scared of heights. There was no way I was putting the Christmas lights up on the outside, on the roof. So I delegated that job to someone. But because I'm too tight, I haven't paid anyone to take them back down again. The Christmas lights remain there. There's part 2 of the story. A week later, Charity was so delighted, that's my wife, was so delighted about how the Christmas lights looked on top of the roof. She bought one of those reindeer things. Seen the reindeer? They flash. They look quite pretty. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to put them on the ground. Don't know why. Big fan of the ground. Don't know why we have to keep going. Anyway, we weren't allowed to put them there. We had to put them on the roof. We've got a little bit, I don't know, it's about that high. The porch bit, as you come into the house, sticks out of the front. She's like, right, they've got to go on top of that so everyone can see them. Now, there are 2 problems with that. Firstly, as before mentioned, I am scared of heights. Secondly, after my first talk, someone came up to me and was like, oh, you've got a ladder, can I borrow it? Which means when it comes to putting up the reindeer, we are without ladder. And by we, I mean Charity is without ladder. C.1, no way I was going up. So, picture the scene, my friends. It is pouring with rain. It is pouring with rain and it is freezing cold in the run-up to Christmas. I've refused to climb up onto the roof. We have found an old gate. It's a metal gate, and we thought we could use that as a ladder. So we found this old metal gate, and we've propped it up against the side of the house, and I've really supported Charity. She's gone up. Cheering her on. She makes it up onto the roof. And then we realised, which I thought was a clever idea, was that we can attach the reindeer to the metal gate in order to stop them flying away and cable tie them on, and they're going to stop them falling over. Great idea. So send the metal gate up on there. I pass some cable ties up, offer some moral support, while she gets absolutely soaked on top of this roof trying to attach the reindeer. 20 minutes later, reindeer look great. And then Charity looks at me from top of the roof, so like that. She's like, how am I getting down? At this point, I remember 10 years ago, I did a few sessions on marriage preparation. And Samuel Sofalui told me some tips. He said, often your wife will come at you with problems. And you will think she will want solutions. She doesn't. And he taught me a phrase. It's like at that moment you just say, my darling, I hear you. So I look at her. She's like, how am I getting down from the roof? I'm like, my love, I hear you. I see that this is a problem for you. And however you want to deal with this problem, I'm going to support you in it. And then I went inside and made a cup of tea. I promise you that Charity was at the first service. She isn't still on the roof. And as she stood there in the rain and in the cold, whilst I'd abandoned her to make a cup of tea, and I wanted to take a photo actually, but anyway. She decided that she couldn't stay there any longer because she was just getting cold and wet. So she kind of jumped onto the trampoline that was next door. As I've said, I'm really sad I didn't get a photo. But anyway, she jumped onto the trampoline. I got some constructive feedback from that interaction afterwards. Apparently there are times you are meant to offer solutions. Anyway, we're all learning. And I finished with this story. Because for many of us, in our relationship with money, we do feel a little bit stuck. That we feel that the habits we have cultivated over many years have led us to a place we don't want to be. And Jesus is telling us it is better to give than to receive. But every time we try and be generous, something within us holds us back. We believe it. We acknowledge it. We know it's true, but it's so hard to actually do something about it. But my friends, if you don't do anything about it, you're going to stay stuck, becoming colder, becoming more uncomfortable, staying more distant. And at some point, you've got to jump. At some point, you've got to make a move. At some point, you have to let the truth of who God is and how Jesus says to live, you have to let it impact your actions. You have to put it into practice. And I know it feels uncomfortable. And I know it's countercultural. And I know it's counterintuitive. But Jesus says it. And the science backs it up. And over the next 4 weeks, I'd invite you to try it. To try practicing generosity. You don't have to start big. Buy someone a coffee. Make the move. Send someone a voucher. Meet someone with any. Do something just enough to make it a little bit uncomfortable and then see how it feels. Make the jump. Because the longer you leave it, the colder and more grumpy you're going to get. My friends, I pray that over the 4 weeks we would move from being less Scrooge to more Ebenezer. That we would remind ourselves that we worship a good and abundant and blessing God. A God who has more than enough. A God who has brought us this far and helped us this far. And I pray that it would change us. That we would alter the direction we are on so at the end of this year we would be a more generous people than we are right now. Jesus, we are sorry for the times that we have looked out on the world and seen scarcity. We are sorry for the times our soul has withered as we have tried to grab and hoard more and more, keeping it from others, keeping it from you. We found ourselves cold and isolated and distant. We are sorry for those times, God. Will you please soften our hearts and open our eyes? May we be known as generous people who have eyes full of light, who see your bountiful creation, we see your abundance, we see your generosity, and we act in kind. Father, would you convict us of the times that we have withheld from others? And as we've done that, we've made ourselves all the poorer. Father, we thank you that you are a good God. I'll finish with this prayer from the course. Father, provide us. You hold all things in endless, fearless supply. Help us to live in that trust, in the rest and extravagance of knowing we can freely give in the manner we have received, selflessly, daringly, and lovingly. Amen. Amen.